All right, so let us start and let's keep chatting in between. Okay, so today's topic is the sequel, as I was telling in the beginning. So we are going to talk about how to write the best paper. And today's the second episode is kind of the second episode, and we are going to figure out how a reviewer thinks. A very good reviewer would look into your paper, how she would be assessing or critically examining your paper, and if you can, put that hat, while you're writing or even before you're writing, I would actually strongly recommend you to do that even before you start writing the paper. Then I can guarantee you that you have a very high chance of coming out with a very strong paper, very solid paper, very comprehensive paper. So the second thing that I would do, the first step is definitely to read very well written paper, and that was part one of this series. And if Ketul is online with us, then I would request Ketul to share the link with you all. So this is the second part, wearing the reviewer's shoes, right? So just in case you guys don't know yet what Rax is, we position it as the next generation AI-powered literature analysis tool. So we will be knowing more about Rax later on. And also we will be talking today a little bit about how Rax might help you in actually doing the writing process, in actually doing specifically focused on today's topic, and how Rax can help you in that, right? So self-criticism. So today's slogan sort of is, the last episode slogan was knowledge acquisition leads to knowledge creation, which means the more knowledge you acquire, the more you will be able to create new knowledge. So today's slogan is self-criticism leads to knowledge creation. So we will be looking into self-criticism today, right? So the end goal is this, can I preempt the rejection? So as you can see, you are like this researcher, we are all like this researcher, and the finish line is paper accepted, and you have all these reviewers, and kind of like with all sorts of weapons and saws and whatnot, and you are carrying your submission, your manuscript towards the end goal, right? So the idea of today's discussion is, can we preempt the rejection even when we start thinking about how to write? So can I preempt this rejection? So that is essentially the crux of the entire, not just this particular episode, but the entire series, right? So so the very first thing I want to elaborate on is, this is step zero. So even when you have not yet started writing the paper, this is something that you should be focusing on. The very first thing that any reviewer, any good reviewer in a good journal or a good conference proceeding will ask these five questions the moment they start reading or skimming through, not even reading in details, but they would just only read the introduction and the abstract. And these are the five questions that they would definitely ask. And the very first question they are going to ask is, what are the core research questions? Okay, so is that very well defined? And if it is not that very well defined in the introduction itself, because right now, imagine that you are the reviewer, and you are essentially going to read only the introduction at step zero. And all you would want to know is that, are the core research questions, if it is a single question, doesn't matter, it can be a single research question, but it can be multiple research questions, and are the research questions very crisply explained and defined, like what exactly is the research question of this paper, right? So that is the first thing. Now, I want to tell you something, that if you have too many research questions in a paper, then it's not a good idea, right? Which means that then what it means is that, and then you should be breaking up that paper into sequel papers, like part one and part two, and the other part two can be another paper, that you can submit. So my recommendation would be not to deal with too many research questions in one single paper. So even if you have solved, let's say if there are 5 research questions, and even if you have solved all 5 of them, split it. And if each 5 of them are substantial enough, which come where we come to the remaining 4 questions over here. And if they are substantial enough, then you actually have 5 different papers to submit. So this is something that you need to understand, right? So the second question that any good reviewer should ask, and that's why you should also ask before even starting the writing process, before even writing a single line, uh, is, are the research questions compatible with the agenda of the venue? And the venue is the target venue, which means the journal or the conference proceeding where you want to submit the paper, submit your manuscript. So even before you write the manuscript, you need to be absolutely sure that the agenda of the journal is compatible with the research questions that you want to solve. And it may very well happen that the research questions that you want to address in this particular paper, which you are about to write, uh, they are very, very important research questions and they should be addressed. However, they are not really relevant to a particular journal, and it can very well happen. And you might be missing out on a lot of journals that you otherwise could have submitted, and you just missed out on that, and you are about to submit on a particular journal which doesn't care much about the particular research question, or for them this particular research question which you care about, that's probably is secondary for them, secondary agenda, not the primary agenda. So this question number 2 is extremely important, and that's what every reviewer is going to think about. That is it relevant to this particular venue or this particular journal, right? And I'll show you, I'll come back to the remaining 3 questions, but I'll show you again with an example how to figure the agenda of a venue, right? So let me just show you one way of figuring out the agenda of the venue. Okay, so again, I will go to the SJR, um, journal rankings page. That's the one way in which you can just look into the particular journals. And I'm going to give you the link of the SJR for those people who are new. Hello, Medha. How are you? Just see where you are from, which university you are from, and which area you're working in, right? Then people will get to know you. So now imagine, I'm giving you a case. So imagine that you are in agriculture and biological sciences, that's your broader domain. And within this domain, imagine that your subdomain is agronomy and crop science. That is where you are. And now imagine that you are now looking into, okay, which journal should I be targeting? And you go for the top journals from 2016 till now. And then you get this particular journal, let's say Plant Biotechnology Journal. So, and let's say that you are liking it. You feel like, hey, yeah, let me check it out. So what you can do is you can actually open this journal over here, and this will tell you which publisher it is, belongs to, and subcategory, and so on and so forth. And you can then go to the home page. Okay, and there is also something called how to publish in this journal, right? So what you can do is you go to the home page of the journal, and then over there you will have something like, let's say that stuffs like aims and scope. So you can go to the aims and scope, and over there it tells you there is a brief description, and it also tells you the topics which it covers, right? So that's the first step. Look into the topic and figure out whether you're at a topic level, whether it's sort of resonates or is compatible with the work or with the area, with the research area that you are in, right? And then what happens is we can you can then later the next step is that this is the first step, okay? Just the overall broader level, at the broader level, what is the aims and what's the scope. At this next level, after doing that, the second step is to go back to the journal. And then over there, you can actually look into the journal, maybe the journal updates or maybe some of the latest articles. And over in the latest articles, you can actually see what are the topics, right? In that's that's sort of going on. As you can see all the articles, and you can see the topic, the title of each article, and that will give you a very nice understanding of recently, in most recent. Sorry about that. There's something wrong with their website. So most recently, what were the papers that they published most recently, right? And you can go back from 2020 to, let's say, 2019 to 2018, maybe even 2017. And you can take that interval, and then you can try to figure out within that recent interval of time, don't go beyond 2017, which means just 3 to 4 years is a good interval. And then try to understand what kind of research problem. So now it's not in a topic level, but at a research problem level. So what kind of research problem they are more interested in? What kind of research problems are getting favored in this particular journal? In a very similar way, you go to the next journal, which is the second ranking maybe, and you do the same thing. And over there also you can go to the home page of the second journal. And again, you can look into the about. So what is this journal about? And you can look into the current issue in the same way, or you can also look into the special issues, because sometimes special issues are dealing with certain topics which are not regularly dealt with, but which they are more into getting, which this particular journal is getting more and more interested in recently. So you can look into the current issue, and then within the current issue, you can look into what kind of problem statements they are dealing with, what kind of research questions they are dealing with. And that will give you a good idea. And this is like 2020. You can go to archive and you can go to the other years, and you can get a clear idea of what's going on right in this particular journal. And that is a way in which you actually answer this particular question. And believe it or not, the second question is extremely important, because I am telling you out of my own experience. When I was a PhD student, an early stage PhD student, even at a mid stage PhD student, I used to make this mistake a lot. I used to look at it more at the topics level, but I never used to look at it at the research question level. And a lot of times what used to happen is that I got rejection because it was not really compatible that much with that particular venue. So at a broader level, AI matching doesn't really matter much. Even at a specific level, let's say I work in NLP and machine learning, so that also doesn't matter much. What matters much is that what kind of research questions over the last 3-4 years are getting more and more, people are more interested in that particular journal, right? So that would be more interesting to look at. Then comes question number 3, and this is the third question that a reviewer will ask whenever the reviewer would look at your abstract and your introduction. Are the research questions still relevant to that community? Because it may well happen, and this is why I was telling you that don't go beyond 3-4 years, because it may very well happen that that particular research question used to get a lot of attention, but maybe in 1990s or in early 2000. But in that particular journal, your research question is now no more in vogue, you know. it's not really something that they are any more interested. The attention has shifted into some other kind of research questions more, and they don't see this research question to be that more interesting for that particular journal. However, it does not mean that that particular research question is out of vogue everywhere. So that is why it is extremely important to have a list with you. And oh, I'm very sorry that I don't know why I closed it. So that is why that list is going to be very important, the list of journals. And you have to check out all the top journals that are ranking. And based on that, you should be uh, trying to narrow down to that particular venue that suits you the best, right? So, by the way, just to give you a peek of what we want to do in the future. So we actually want to automate this process in Rax by coming up with a feature that will tell you automatically after by reading your manuscript, and it would be automatically able to tell you that okay, at these are the venues that would be most suitable for the research question that you are focusing on, and also not just the research question but the approach you're taking, or the method that you're taking, or the technique that you are using. So these are the kind of journals that would be the best for you to submit. So that's kind of like the future scope or the roadmap that we have for Rax. But well, a slight digression. Then the question number 4, and in question number 4, the reviewer is going to ask, and this is extremely important, and that's why I put it into italics, as you can see. Uh, are the research questions intrinsically difficult to address? So, which means that once the reviewer is satisfied with the first 3 questions, then comes the 4th question. Otherwise, he wouldn't even ask the 4th question if he is not satisfied with the first 3 questions. So, the 4th question, the reviewer is going to ask, is this research question actually very difficult to address? Now, here comes the trick, because a lot of times it may happen that for you, this question might be quite difficult to solve, but it's kind of quite subjective. If you, I don't know how many people will agree with me, because for somebody else it's not that difficult. For somebody else, the solution or the approach or the way to handle this particular research question may be quite obvious, right? But for you it wasn't so obvious, and that's why you sat down to write this paper, and then somebody gives you a review saying that, well, it's kind of quite obvious. And I don't see why this question is a research question, because the moment you consider a question as a research question, it should not, there has to be an intrinsic difficulty. And by intrinsic difficulty, what I mean is at multiple different levels. So the first level is that uh, uh, the question itself has to be multifaceted or multidimensional, in the sense that it's not unidimensional. It's not just you just look into this one single aspect of the question, of the research question or the problem, and you are able to solve it. So there are multiple different things that you have to tackle and solve at the same time. So that is one way in which a research question becomes difficult, right? Another way in which the research question can actually become difficult, or rather, what I'm trying to discuss right now, I'm trying to discuss how, when will you actually get that signal that your research question is actually difficult. The other signal is that there are certain assumptions that you have to take, or you have to adopt in order to solve this research question. Because if you're not able to take certain assumptions, then it's pretty and you are able to solve, then which means that the research question may not, I'm saying that it is not always, but it may not have that much of difficulty. The third thing is that in order to get the findings or the results which will actually support your claim, that getting to that finding itself, which is the method or the approach, is painstaking. It takes a lot of time and effort and a lot of field study and a lot of sample study and a lot of other analysis to actually get to that finding, right? So that if that is so, then yes, this research question is intrinsically difficult to solve. The fourth thing is that if the finding is not just okay, I got some result, but do I have to look at the result in multiple different ways, in multiple different angles, and analyze each one of analyze the observation and try to come up with a inference. And if that is so, and if in order to do that analysis itself is not easy, because it's not just not intuitive, like, okay, I saw a cat walking by the street, and okay, yeah, there is a cat walking by the street. It's not just like that. There's a deeper meaning, let's say, and you are trying to bring out a deeper meaning out of the results that you got, and you are actually expositioning it nicely in your paper. Then that definitely means that the research question is intrinsically difficult, right? So so you really need to understand that the contribution that you are making in that particular paper which you are writing, whether that contribution is really significant. And it will only be significant when the research question which you are addressing is intrinsically difficult and you have addressed it properly, right? And then the final question that people are going to ask you, or reviewers who are going to ask, are going to look at, is how many researchers are up to the task? In the sense that how popular is this research question, or how non-popular is this research question? And this question number 5 is something which is very interesting. There are a lot of disciplines like engineering and in computer science where the popularity wins, which means that if the research question, it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a very good thing to happen, but that's how the community is working in general. That a lot of community think that if a research question is not popular enough, which means that people are which means that it's not really something which is interesting for the community. It's kind of a chicken and egg problem, like it's not really true. Actually, I personally don't believe that, because you may have a very, very important research question to solve or to address, and that question, nobody asked that question, let's say, it just completely missed everyone, or it's just that it's too difficult and people don't ask that question because it's too difficult, and you ask that question and you try to address it. So it may have the full merit, that but still in certain communities people would rather see whether the research question is actually popular, in the sense of people are actually interested to know about that research question, know more about that research question. However, in many other kind of disciplines like humanities and in certain kind of social sciences, the other way around is true, which means that if if you're addressing a popular research question, or rather a research question that has been dabbled by a lot of people, I shouldn't use the word popular in that sense, but a research question that has been dabbled by a lot of people, then it's actually bad for you in those communities, because they would love to see new research questions being asked, new research questions being addressed. So those are the kind of communities that are more like that, right? So you really need to understand your community very well, and which community you belong, and how reviewers are going to look into this particular question 5, because this particular question 5, both, as I said, like both low and high can be good, right? So this is step 0. The idea is that before even writing a paper, when you're thinking about, or when you and your supervisor, you guys are coming together, you're figuring out, okay, so let's write a paper. This is my research question. Ask these 5 questions. I I urge you to ask these 5 questions to yourselves. And if you don't have a strong positive answer for the 5 questions, that you need to first find or pick up the right research question, right? So that is the idea. So from at this point, I'm going to like take a little break and look into your chat and see how whether people have questions for the chat. Okay, so let's see if I find some questions, or also put your opinions about, especially about question number 5. Like, which community you belong to, and is it more that people favor more popular questions, research questions, or is it that people favor less popular or the rare kind of questions, which means new questions, new research questions is what is more favored, right? So hi, Chandan is doing. Hi, Chandan. Chandan is doing his just enrolled PhD from Teka from Manji University, Bihar. Great. And you're and faculty of MBA. Okay, great. Uh, so let's see. Is it necessary to select journals beforehand? Yes, absolutely, Umesh. I mean, this is something that I do insist as a step zero, that you should set your target very well before writing the paper. When you are actually finally, you have figured out that, yeah, I am in a position to write the paper. I'm saying that at that stage. Okay. So when you are at the stage, when you have decided to start to sit down and write the paper, you, even before you actually start the writing process, this is what you should do. You should select the journals beforehand in this way that I strongly recommend you to do that in the way that I showed you. So travel research, tourism, let's say, Umesh, if would it be correct to assume that as tourism? So if it is a tourism, if your research area is tourism, I would definitely, if I were you and if I were in a position to write a paper, which means I have enough data and I have enough finding and enough things to talk about, which means I have actually addressed a research question. Then I would try to figure out first, like, where should I be submitting this work even before I write the work, and I should first make sure that I have narrowed it down to one single target, right? Because I'll tell you, the style, the way you want to position your work, the way you want to position your contribution also depends a lot on where you are submitting. There are a lot of intricacies associated with it, right? And I will talk more about these things in the upcoming, in the next episode, episode number 3 of this series, where I would walk you through how to design a blueprint and what are the things that you should keep in mind while designing the blueprint, right? We will talk more on those things. So, hello, Megha, you're from TV University Jalandhar. Great. Uh, have you? Is this your first time, or you are? We have seen you before as well. Uh, I think Madhavi has a technical question, I guess. Um, I hope I'm visible on the screen. I think there's a serious question that Madhavi has raised now, and now I am kind of serious. Like, am I even visible on screen or not? So just let us know, people, guys. Just let me know whether I'm visible on screen. Just say yes or no. Uh, okay, Umesh is also saying that if you're sharing and explaining it from, we can't see your screen. Okay, all right. So maybe I did not share my screen. Oh, that's actually quite stupid of me. All right. So don't worry about it at all, because I was just in the first first presentation only. So yeah, so this is the screen that I am on. I'm extremely sorry about it. And yeah, so these are the 5 questions that I'm discussing. So this is step 0. Question number 1, what are the core research questions? Question number 2, are the research questions compatible with the agenda of the venue? Question number 3, are the research questions still relevant to the community? Question number 4, are the research questions intrinsically difficult to address? And this is the 5th question that I was asking all of you to put your own opinions. Like, what do you feel? Like, because some places they prefer that you should be picking up a research question that many people are interested in, while in some cases, some disciplines, they prefer that you should be picking up a research question that is new, right? So that's it. And what I wanted to what I wanted to show you, just to quickly go to the thing again from the SGR thing, uh, is essentially that you go to the journal which you are interested in, and over here you go to home page, and over home page you can then look into the most recent proceedings, or most recent, you can go to about journal. You should go to about journal first. You should look into the basic idea of the about overview. And if you already know the journal overview, then you should look into the most recent papers, most read papers, and so on, whatever is available. And this will give you a nice idea starting from 2020 to back 3 to 4 years back. In that interval, like within an interval of 3 to 4 years, you should be looking into the research problem or the research question from the title of the paper and probably from the abstract. Like what exactly is getting more preference in that particular journal, right? So this is what I was talking about. I'm extremely sorry that I completely missed out on sharing the screen. And thanks a lot, Madhvi, for calling it out. Otherwise, I would have kept on doing this. Okay, so okay, great. It's visible now. So, guys, this question number 5? That's what I'm more interested in to know from you. Like in your university, let's say in your discipline, let's say Nidha is from chemistry, and Madhvi is from food science, and Vidya I know is from education technology. So, what do you think about question number 5? Like, how many researchers are up to the task? Uh, in your field, what's your, according to you, what happens? Is it like new research gets more preference, or is it like more popular research questions get more preference? Hello, Dr. Amita. If you can just let us know, Dr. Amita, what's your research background, and which university you're from or which institute you're from, it would be great. Human resources, Chandan. Okay, great. So, so just let me know. I mean, just feel free to communicate with each other. Like you are at question number 4, okay? So, so are the research questions intrinsically difficult to address? I have explained what how you would judge whether your research question which you want to address is whether that is intrinsically difficult or not. But this question number 4. I want to tell you something, that it should be a question that should be asked even in the beginning of the research, not only just in the beginning of the writing the paper. Because you see, like if question number 4 goes wrong, then what can happen is that you are actually chasing the wrong goose, so to say, that you did all the experiments, all the results, all the field trips, everything, and then finally you're actually trying to address a research question that everybody thinks that is quite obvious, right? So you first need to make sure that question number 4 is properly, proper even before you start the research. Forget about starting the paper, writing the paper. Okay, in your area, more theory-based research questions gets more preference, but the question, Umesh, was whether it's more new research questions that get more preference, or old questions that could. Keep chatting, keep putting out on your chat while I keep going forward. But keep conversating with yourselves, like in your discipline, according to you, whether they prefer new research questions to be solved or whether they prefer popular research questions to be solved, to be addressed, right? Okay, all right. So now we will come to the next part. So, so step number one after that is mise en place. Please pardon my French pronunciation. I took this, it's kind of because I'm actually, I consider myself a big student, a die-hard student of culinary art, like cooking. And this term actually comes from culinary discipline, where mise en place. What does it mean? It means it's a French word, and it means that before you start the cooking process or before you start cooking, uh, you make all the prep work done and you keep that on your table, nicely arranged, the right thing arranged at the right place, so that when you keep working, you don't have to run around and look for ingredients from here and there. Everything should be all nicely arranged in front of you, right? So that's what we call as mise en place. Now, what does that mean in our context? It means that make sure that all your supporting evidences are ready. And I just give you a few checklists over here. So before even writing, starting the writing process, uh, these are the checklists that you should be focusing on. Like as an example, if you are, of course, in your research work, you would be trying to establish a particular point. You want to establish a point. That is why people write papers. People write papers because they want to establish a point, right? Whether it is problem solving or whether it is reporting a particular phenomena or whether it is explaining that particular phenomena or whether it is coming up with a new hypothesis and or whether it is a particular mathematical analysis or other kind of analysis that you are coming up with, or whether it is a whole new perspective that you want to give on a particular topic or a particular aspect of life. So this is all like establishing your point, establishing your final argument, final claim. So there's a claim that you're trying to make. There's an argument that you're a final argument that you're making. And for making that final argument, what you would do, you would try to come up with lots of facts and figures and evidences that would support all your arguments. So your arguments has to be, all the arguments have to be backed up by authentic and authoritative facts. And authentic means that they are true, they are genuine, and authoritative means the source from which they are coming uh, they are essentially well respected sources. Okay, so these sources are sources that your community or the reviewer, and because this is what the reviewer is going to look at it. Again, this is from the reviewer's perspective, because the reviewer is going to look into this checklist when they are trying to read your paper. So even before starting the writing process, you should be ready with all these things. That my arguments, whatever arguments you want to make, whether all the facts and figures are in place, whether they are authentic, and whether they are authoritative, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing that you want to make sure is that is the right kind of sampling done with the right kind of time regularity, in the sense that if your experiment needs to be done in multiple different time points, then are you taking the right kind of sample study when you're doing a sample study and you're trying to run your experiments or whatever you are doing, because if you want to come up with some findings, you need to do something to come up with the findings. Even in humanities, if not experiment, but you need to do some maybe field trips, or maybe you need to read up a lot of other people's arguments and collect them together, assimilate them together, and also do a lot of interviews and so on and so forth, right? So that's all your observation. So you need to do that in a systematic manner, and that's the sampling process. And the sampling should be done in the way which is acceptable in your own discipline, right? And that is extremely important. And then it should be, if it requires multiple different sampling process to be done, multiple different studies, sample studies to be done at multiple different time, then that has to be maintained too. Because if that is the expectation from your reviewer, then you have to do that, right? Third thing is that are all the experiments done with appropriate controlled environment? So controlled environment is something which is extremely important, which is the setup, which is the experimental setup, or the way in which you are setting up your experiment, or the way, which means before you start observing something, how did you set up your environment, right? Because if your environment is not set up in the right way, then it will create bias in terms of whatever observations you will make. There will be noises and there will be biasness. So then your analysis of that observation is also going to be biased, right? So this controlled environment is something that the reviewer is always going to care about. That does the way you have set up your evaluation process, whether that actually is something that has been done meticulously, properly, systematically, without bias, right? So that is point number 3. And point number 4 is that is the result of the finding, whatever finding you're getting or whatever results you're getting, uh, and you're trying to analyze that, right? So is that analysis method, the method in which you're analyzing the results, is that even acceptable? That method has to be acceptable in your community. What matters is your community at the end of the day. So whichever journal or whichever venue you're choosing, you need to make sure that these methods are acceptable over there, right? And they're not just acceptable, but they are comprehensive, which means the method is not half-hearted. It's not done in a half-hearted, but it has rigor in it, which means you have done all the different analysis that a reviewer is going to expect. So that is checklist number 4. Number 5 is that are you getting acceptable precision, which means whatever result you're getting, is that precise enough? Is that accurate enough? Are you getting acceptable accuracy? Or is it kind of noisy? And so you need to make sure that it's not noisy. Then finally, is a related work, because you would be doing literature survey and you have to position your own work with respect to other people's work. So is that thorough enough? Is that comprehensive enough? So you have to have done that literature, and that goes back to the Rax sessions and how you can do that in Rax while you're doing literature survey and analysis, right? So it goes back to those things. And you can later on, if people who have not yet looked into those videos which we have on YouTube, you can look at those videos and how to actually do this related work in a very comprehensive manner. And then finally, are the figures and tables ready? uh, which means that all the figures and tables that you will be putting in your paper, that this is an interesting thing that I want to tell you, that you really should make sure that your figures and tables are ready even before you actually start writing the paper. Don't do it while you are writing the paper. So because you know what is your goal, you know all your ingredients are in place, you know how you are going to position a particular figure, you know where you are going to use a particular table and why you are going to use it, how you are going to use them to support a particular claim, exactly how you are going to use them to support your claim. And that is why those things should be ready beforehand. And then, are they truly supporting the claim? You really need to make sure that, because this is something that the reviewer is definitely going to question when they look into a figure, when they look into a table, they will say, are they really supporting the claim that you're trying to make, or are they like 50% supporting, or are they not even supporting and you just plunged in some figure and table just to make things pretty? And it's not going to work in, if you're trying to look into a very good journal or a very good conference proceeding. So, but if you do these things properly, meticulously, without hurrying and jumping into writing the paper, then you will definitely come up with a really good paper, a very strong paper, and with really high probability you can get that accepted in a very good place, very prestigious place. So make sure that while you are doing the research, as you are doing the research, so these checklists are getting ticked while you're doing the research. Don't think about, like, no, I really need to get down into writing and all those things. So make sure that these are all ready with you, right? So any questions so far? Let me see if I have more questions. Hello, hello, Faith. Nice to see you. I mean, Faith, I guess this is your first time. I guess. Just let us know what's your research area and which university you're from. So your question is question number five. And what about unexplored topics? Yeah, unexplored topics. So what I'm trying to tell you, Faith, is that, and everybody, you should go for unexplored topics if that venue, and this is why somebody asked me that question. I think Umesh asked me that question. This is why choosing your venue is very important. You need to know, like, it's almost like dating a boy or dating a girl. You need to know what they like and what they don't like. If they don't like Vietnamese restaurant, then don't take them to a Vietnamese restaurant. And like, this actually happened with me. My wife took me to a Vietnamese restaurant on our first date, and I really don't like Vietnamese food. So no offense to Vietnamese people, but I don't like Vietnamese food. And I just, well, that's how it went, my first date. So that's what I'm saying, that you really need to know where you're going to send your manuscript, and just not just start writing in. So you know that, okay, this venue doesn't really like surprises. This venue do not like unknown research problems to be addressed, right? So don't do it then. Look for those venues where they do like these sort of things, where they do like surprises, where they not just like, they expect surprises. So look for those sort of and again, that's the reason why I was telling you to look into the last 5 years or 4 years or 3 years of a particular venue and what they have published over there, because that will clearly tell you. If you see that there are multiple different types of research questions, like one research question is very different than the other, and all sorts of research questions, then you know that they do like new research questions. But if you see that most of the research questions are kind of like very similar to each other, then it means that they actually do not prefer that. They probably, it means, if it is consistent, which means not just in 2020, 2019 it happened the same way, 2018 it happened the same way, then it means that they try to flock towards the, kind of flocking towards a particular set of research questions only. That's how that particular venue is. So don't, no point sending your manuscript to those sort of places if you are the sort of person who likes to pursue rare topics or new kind of research questions, right? Or unexplored topics. Uh, I hope I was good at clarifying it, Faith. So Madhavi has a question. Does every paper need to be based on a research that one has done? There could be ideas only. Uh, can we write a paper on an idea without any data to support? Okay, so this is a very, very good question, Madhavi. And I would like to tell you something, that there are papers, there are position papers, what we call it. And let me put it over there, called position papers. So they are like idea papers, so to say. So these are idea papers, and usually what I have seen, at least in my discipline, that these are the kind of papers that are published in workshops or in certain kind of conferences as a separate track. So there's a separate track where they only invite position papers, right? So position papers are papers which are very open-ended. They are not really paper, and you will see them very short, like three page, or maybe at the most 4 page. And they are just trying to explain a problem. So they are trying to bring out a new problem. They don't have a solution yet, probably, but they are just trying to describe and discuss a particular research question. And they feel that the research question is extremely important, and the community should seriously consider in pursuing this research question. So in other words, if you're writing a position paper, in other words, you are gifting a research question to the research community, right? So this is what idea papers are. But I also want to tell you, Madhavi, that uh, at the end of the day, we are all trying to build careers, right? So position papers are not going to get you that many number of brownie points. So in order to get real strong brownie points, you have to come up with papers which are proper, papers, like with proper contribution, like the in the context that we are currently discussing. So yes, Faith, okay, health literacy of adults, great. You are from Meghalaya. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I guess this is your first time, Faith. Great. Okay. So let's continue, and we will have more stuffs to discuss, and let's try to finish up, and then we will come back to more questions, right? Okay. So step number 2 is when you write, you just write. So make sure of that. When you write, you just write. So you really need to have at least 1 month of only writing. You don't do anything else. Of course, you do a lot of other things. But I'm saying from a research point of view, you should only focus on writing. And this is my strong recommendation to all of you. Don't do many things together at the same time. When you're writing, just focus on writing, right? And there are multiple ways, this is kind of going to be the next Wednesday, which is the episode number 3 discussion, but I'm just going to give you a brief overview of that particular of next week's discussion. So overcoming the writer's block, right? So that's the problem, because a lot of times when you are actually started writing, it's like how to start, where to start, how to actually build it up, because it's like a blank sheet is like staring at you and you don't know what to do right now, right? So there is a lot of things, a lot of research that you have done, but you don't know how to put everything together, right? So this is what we are going to discuss in the next session. But just to give you an outline, step 1, you need to make a sectional blueprint, and this is what I am going to show you how to make a nice sectional blueprint, and which means every section of your paper should, first make the blueprint section wise, right? Then step 2 is fill up the blueprint with bullet points of the key arguments. So don't write it, just fill it up with bullet points. Step number 3 is check for inconsistencies and weak argument. There is a method, there is a technique in which you can actually do that. Step number 3, check for inconsistencies and weak arguments, and how do you identify it? Then step number 4 is describe the problem first. That's the easiest. Okay. Then step number 5 is detail out the prose sections, and you need to go top down in a bigger picture first. You first draw the full bigger picture of how you're going to solve this thing, and then you go into the details and details. It's like how you peel an onion. So it's like peeling the onion sort of. So that's the way you should do it, right? So the prose sections, and then finally you detail out the evaluation sections. So this is the order. This is the order in which you should be reading, writing a particular draft, your first draft, right? So this is your first draft. And after that, once you're done with it, then step number 3 is write the introduction. Don't write the introduction before step number 2. Okay, so I'm warning you, don't do that. And one of the major reasons why you should not do that is your introduction is the most important piece, believe it or not, because that is the point where reviewers are going to first read the introduction. They're not even going to read anything else. They will just read the introduction and they will make up their mind whether to reject it or not. They will not going to make up their mind whether to accept it, because for that they will read the remaining of the paper, but they will definitely make up their mind whether they want to reject you or not. So it's like almost like again, the first date. Well, I did not reject my wife because she took me to a Vietnamese restaurant, so I am kind of an outlier, but your reviewer is not going to be like that. So your reviewer definitely is going to, just pass you if she doesn't find your introduction to be compelling enough. So that's why, keep a lot of time for that. Keep like at least 1 week for only writing the introduction. That's how serious I am, right? And there are ways in which you should be writing the introduction. And so essentially how to make sure that the introduction rocks, which means that you need to sell yourself or sell your paper to the reviewer. Almost 65% should be sold, right? So that is the crux of writing a very, very good introduction. And that is what we are going to see how to write a good introduction in the next on next Wednesday, right? Then, sorry, there's a typo here. Step number 4 is revise, revise, and revise. So after doing step number 3, so which means that you need to have multiple versions of your draft. So be your own reviewer first. So first you need to be your own reviewer. And how to be your own reviewer, I already told you certain things. I will be telling you a lot more things in the on next Wednesday. But the second thing, after being your own reviewer, after being done, then you pass on the paper to your lab mates, and not just your supervisor. Pass it to your lab mates also, or your teammates, or whoever is close to you and whoever is doing research which is in the same area, so to say, or sub area. And do something like this, like you do a part-wise revision, which means you first give the abstract to be reviewed. You get it, it's like a round circle, it's like passing the ball, sort of. You first pass the abstract around, then you pass the introduction around, and do it top down, and then you pass the, sorry, don't start with the abstract, because I've still, the abstract is still to be made. So pass the introduction, then pass the next section, then pass the next section, and then finally pass the conclusion, and so on. So have a common online organization platform, and Rax can be amazing for that, by the way. Because people will be critiquing on, so you will get a lot of critique on your, let's say, introduction, and then you will get a lot of critique on your apps, on your other things. So you can actually piecewise write the paper on Rax, and then you can share it, and then you can actually do a discussion thread on that, on top of that, right? So I'm going to show you how you can do step number 4 on Rax. Okay, so maybe 5 minutes, and I'll be showing you today how you can do this step number 4 on Rax, and then make necessary changes in each part as it comes through certain kind of editing process. But I'll show you what is the best way of doing this on Rax. So, but then, make sure that, and that is why Rax can be very helpful, because make sure that this doesn't happen, in the sense that you are like, you have draft number 1, then you try draft number 2, then you revise and revise and revise, and the revision keeps on going, and it's kind of draft number infinity. And then, finally it gets approved by your supervisor. You know why? Not because it was good, but because he is tired and fed up. So, so that shouldn't happen, right? So, and then finally, once you are done with all this revision and everything, then the finishing touch, which is finishing up the discussions and conclusion, then you should write the best abstract possible. And then you should do the proper typesetting if required, which means certain journals want to do the formatting, which is essentially the formatting, how journal specific formatting has to be done. So if that is something that you have to do. But let me go back to, this is step number 5, I should change it. So let me just, this is step number 4. Sorry to do it on the fly. Okay, so let's look at how you can do step number 4 and step number 5 on Rax. Okay, and then we will come to some, we'll quickly see this. So for those people who are yet to find where Rax is, what you do is you just type the, okay, you just, okay, so you just type the website over here and you get to Rax. The website is Raxter.io. And the login process is very simple. You can also just put your email and just get started. And once you are inside Rax, you will see that you have all these research projects, and you can work on multiple different research projects. You can create a new research project like over here. And inside any particular research project in Rax, and what you will see is that it's actually every kind of research project is broken down into the papers that you would be reading and the drafts that you will be working on, and that can be one, some of those drafts can be the paper that you're writing, right? So over here, so these are the drafts, and you have some other things, and I'm not going to talk about that today. So now today I'm going to show you how you can do step number 4 and step number 5 in Rax, right? So what I will do, I'll actually go make a new project, and I can name it as a submission project. Okay, so let's say that it's something like this. I did this review as a reviewer, not like submitting my own paper, but as a reviewer, I followed Rax. I actually used Rax to review all these papers, essentially, which was given to me in a particular IEEE Indicon conference. So I was one of the reviewers over there. So what I did was that I looked into a paper. So let's say this is my paper. Now I want to review my own paper, right? And I am doing my own first revision, right? So what I do is I upload the paper, the PDF of the paper, and then what I can do is I can look into key insights. This is one way, by the way, and I can generate the key insights for this particular paper. And then I can look into the possible originality, which is my own originality. And then what I can do is I can select the whatever it has been detected by Rax as the original. And of course, I will be knowing because it's my paper, so I know that whether it is actually the original thing or not. And if it is actually original, I can select it, which means Rax did a good job in detecting the originality. I can quickly do that, and I can select the section, and I can click on research papers. So this icon is for research papers, which means that now Rax is going to find out all those papers that have similar kind of stuff, which means I am trying to figure out how original is my thinking or my idea as compared to other ideas in this particular, you know, uh, with respect to this particular paper. I can also look into deeper things, and I can also do the same thing for um, this particular statement that came out as an possible originality. I can go into the methodology also and try to figure out what other people have done, how whether other people have done taken similar methods or similar steps or not. And like as an example, uh, if this was something and I want to see whether other people have try to address the same issue or try to has taken the same method, in terms of the approach, and I can select this, and again I can click on this, and I can get to see more papers. And if I see I want to read those papers, I can again attach those papers. Like as an example, this is one paper, and I really want to attach this paper uh, because I feel like this is actually related to identification of gender. So then what I can do is that I can actually attach it, and it comes into my attachment. And later on, if I want to read the paper, I can click over here and I can add it to my literature, and it gets added to my literature over here. So like this, and I can then, add the PDF over here. So if I want to. So that is one way. The other way of doing it is that you can actually look into the specific section which you think is in your own paper, which you know because you have written the paper, and you know that this one is the actual novelty. Then you can select that section, and this will pop up. And over here, you can then click on research articles. So again, what will happen is all those papers which relate to this particular uh, newness or novelty or originality will come up. And then what you can do is if you think that, well, this is something that you would really like to look into, then what you can do is you can, like, all these results are going to come up, right? And sometimes you will also find that the prestige aspect of the place where it has been published, so that will also come up as over here. This is a new feature that we came up with. So you can see the impact factor, the site score, the SNIP score, all different types of. We don't prefer a particular, the SJR score, which I showed you. So we don't prefer, we don't give a preference to any particular score. Whatever score works for you, you can choose it accordingly, right? And then based on that, if you think that, okay, this is something which is interesting and I want to know more so that I can actually do my related work in a much better way, or I can actually position, maybe because I think that this paper talks about certain things in certain ways, and what I might do, I might re-edit and change this particular thing and position and word it in a different way, so that it becomes a lot more clear how I am different than these people, let's say, than these people. Because I have to make it very clear that how I am different than other papers. So what I will do, I can attach it over here, and it gets attached to this particular section, so that I can later on, come back to this draft version, and I can actually look into the paper, read the paper. If I don't have time to read the paper, I can read the key insights of the paper. I can generate the key insights of that paper, like over here. I can generate the key insights of this paper, and I can actually go back uh, and do the thing, right? So these are very interesting way in which you can. So I can keep adding more papers. Like I can add this paper also uh, into the same place. So now, as you can see, that these two papers got attached or stick. And this is a good way of organizing everything when you are trying to criticize or critique your paper at an individual level. Also, you can go at multiple different other places, and you can check out, like, let's say, related works, or maybe a particular uh, maybe the evaluation section, and you can check out what, whether uh, there are there are other papers that are related to a particular way in which you have done the experimentation. So you can again select that particular place, that particular section, and you can again look up for papers that have used that particular um, technique of evaluation, and again you can attach it. Another thing that you can do is, since you have read a lot of papers and you might want to do citations of those papers, and you are not able to figure out like which papers to cite and which papers not to cite, and you have already read so many papers that's in your reading list. So what you can do is you can actually select a particular section like this. And let's say that I want to figure out whether I need to cite anything in this section, right? Whether I need a citation over here. So what you can do, you can select this section, and again, now you can do compare this section or the idea of the section with compare from your collection. So you click on it. So all the papers that you have already read are, that's all in your reading list, not just in this particular project, but in other projects will also come up. And if there is nothing, you will get to see that there's actually nothing. If there is something, then you will get to see that there is something. Like as an example, I think there was something because, yeah, I think like this particular section had something, and that I connected that. As you can see, this came from this particular project, research paper, information extraction. And this was the paper. And there were other papers also that were suggested, like this comes from this particular project, this comes from this particular project, this comes from this particular. So all different types of projects, things are coming up. And I also get to know which section of that paper is actually related with this, right? And I can read that section over here of that paper which came up, right? And then if I think that, yeah, this is something that actually is what I want to cite, then I can connect it. So the moment I connect it and put a remark, let's say need to be cited, I put it like that and enter, press enter. Then what happens is I can come over here, and now I have two connections, as you can see, right? So now I know, okay, so in this particular zone, I need to cite these two papers, right? So this is a very, very good way in which you can actually connect what you're writing, your current writing movement, with what you have already read before, right? So by this, I'm going to kind of like wrap it up. So this is sort of the crux in which you can actually use Rax to do the thing. I will leave the team way, how to do the team way for the next session. So probably I would, because we don't have much time today. So I'm definitely going to talk about this part, which is how you can actually pass it around, and do the entire thing as a team, right? So So that would be it. And finally, I know that writing papers are lonely and can be very draining. And that's what we are trying to solve through this series of episodes, right? And we will see you next Wednesday with part 3, which is designing the blueprint, right? So now I will take some departing questions and then we will say each other good night. Hi, Amarachi, Simone. Great to see you. You know, we keep talking on Discord. People just keep joining Discord. I want you to join Discord because we want to discuss a lot more in details, because you know we don't want to just wait for a Wednesday to come. So whenever you have an idea, whenever you have a question, whenever you have a suggestion, or whenever you want to just connect with each other, you can anyways do it on Discord. So the Discord link is over here. I'm just going to reshare it. So this is the Discord link. Yeah, I know, Umesh. That's why the blueprint is going to be for the next round, right? Question from Snehil Gupta. Hi, Snehil. Just also let us know what's your research area and which university you're from. So although the sample size have been calculated a priori, but during the process of research due to participant attrition, right, definitely so. So, uh, so basically what you do is that, first of all, you don't start writing your manuscript before you're done with your research. That's the very first thing I'm telling you, right? So the second thing is that you know what is an acceptable number. And if you don't have that acceptable number, then it should not be that other researchers are getting an acceptable number and you are not getting that acceptable number. So that's one thing that you need to understand, which means that if there are 10 other researchers who are also working on the same research question as the research question that you are working on, and if they are finding the sample size which is acceptable by the community, and if you are not finding the sample size, then you better find the sample size, because otherwise it's not going to be a worth in a very good journal or in a very good conference proceeding. People will question that and criticize that. So that will be a weak point for you, definitely. So there's no way you should be trying to justify. I would not recommend you to justify yourself in that case. However, if it is such that in the particular research question is such that it's very difficult to find the sample size, and it's difficult not just for you but for all of the community, then you have a point to say, and you can then describe why it is difficult to get the sample size. So what is the reason of attrition, why that attrition happens, and so on and so forth, right? You can clearly justify that, but don't try to justify it if you know that in your research community, other people are getting that sample size. Okay, and that would be my personal recommendation for you. Okay, I will definitely share the thing on. I actually share all of this on Discord, and I will definitely share the presentation with you guys as well over here. So, thank you, Madhavi. Thank you, Chandan. Uh, Please do come back, and please do bring your students, your colleagues, your friends, so that we can make this community a lot more exciting. Thanks a lot for coming, Snehil. Oh, you are from Department of Psychiatry. Okay, AIMS Bhopal. Okay, you have been trained in AIMS Delhi. Oh, great to see you. Do bring your students as well, Snehil, and do share this thing, that the kind of community building that we are trying to do. Just spread this message so that more and more people can come together and discuss things with me and with all of us, not just me. And I'm just sharing my own personal experience and my own personal opinions, but I do want your opinions also to come out, right? Okay, all right. So I guess this is where we would like to wrap it up, because I know things are getting late for a lot of people, and if you have more questions, just keep posting it on Discord, right? So just join Discord and keep posting more questions on Discord.